I always forget that this part of the live gets recorded also. Good afternoon, everyone. I know no one's really hopped on yet, but I am here about to do a live with Jan Marini. Oh, she's already on. That was quick, and let me just approve this record through. Hold on. Hello? Is it our internet? Is it not our internet? It says, oh, hello.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Jan?
Good, thank you.
You look amazing. I
Hi,
love your hair.
thank you. I'm
Um,
I'm going through the
oh,
terrible trials of growing my bangs out or not growing my bangs out because I haven't made up my mind.
I know. I had bangs for a little while, and then I let it's just one of those things. You got to figure it out. But I do like them, so
Well, thank you.
they
But
look great.
it's kind of like when you get them, you're just so in love, you're obsessed.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, you're done. And then
Yes.
there's nothing you can do.
When I was actually, I think I was in fifth grade, I just decided that I had no bangs anymore. So I went upstairs and I hairsprayed them back to my head. And then I went to school and I told everyone, like, they were like, oh, where's your bangs? Because mine were very thick from the 80s. And I said, oh, I grew them out. They just grew
Okay.
overnight. I just got rid of
You
them.
you actually did something that was rather sensible. When I was little and decided I didn't want bangs, my mother was always had my hair in a bowl cut. I just
Oh,
simply
no.
took the scissors and cut them off, like
You just
at
went
the
for it.
scalp. Yeah, at the scalp. Yeah.
The
So
little
anyway,
tiny bangs. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk with you. For everyone who's watching, we're going to do a live about anti-aging and skin rejuvenation. This is our fourth live together.
I think
We've
so.
done
Third or fourth. Yeah. Yeah.
acne. Yeah, we've done like acne, rosacea, discoloration.
Mm-hmm.
So Jan is just the best, and it's
Thank
so sweet that she
you.
even takes her time to do this.
Aw.
So, if you guys have any questions, please submit them because I do have a little drawing going, and then I actually have a couple of questions that my clients had sent in prior to, so we could ask those as well. Jan loves questions, and want me to? I'll just jump right into it.
Yeah, and I want everybody to know, even though we're talking about, our primary focus is skin rejuvenation. Please, if you have questions about acne, about rosacea, about discoloration, any of your concerns, it's not just, fine lines and wrinkles. And you'll hear me in a minute talk about skin rejuvenation is not just that, but I want all your questions. I love to get questions. So go ahead.
Amazing. We appreciate it. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about visible aging and the process in general?
Yeah. So I want to kind of, from my perspective, define what I think skin rejuvenation is. So a lot of times when you think about it, you think about, oh, well, I'm getting older, or I have fine lines, or I don't like the texture of my skin. Skin rejuvenation is not just about fine lines and wrinkles. It's really about acne, it's rosacea, it's discoloration, it's large pores. It is perfecting the skin so that when you look at the mirror, your skin has a beautiful glow to it. It looks healthy. Maybe you don't even really see your follicles. You don't see those imperfections. And there's a name right now that really gets a lot of play in social media that actually came out of Korea, which they call it, glass skin. There's
Yes.
another term that they use called cloud skin. Glass skin is like it's like very reflective, very smooth, and cloud skin is the absence of imperfections. Again, acne and rosacea and brown spots and things like that. The skin tone is even, so it looks healthy, it looks radiant, it looks perfected. And another way of putting it is I like to say it's kind of like the red carpet look. You see celebrities going down the red carpet and their skin looks amazing. They don't even look like they're wearing makeup. Well, they probably have tons of makeup on, but the point is, you'd like to look like that without makeup, and you'd like to have maybe foundation to be optional. And
Yes.
I'm going to take it one step further. Sometimes, Amanda, people get a little bit offended when we talk about use the term aging because it's sort of like, well, we shouldn't be held up to a standard or we should age gracefully or that type of thing. So first of all, I like a term called skin longevity. Now,
Ooh, okay.
I
Mm.
hope that I live to be really, 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 really old.
Me,
Now
me too.
I'm kind of old as it is anyway because I turned 73 at the end of December.
Oh,
But I hope I live
wow.
many more years.
Well, you
Now,
look amazing.
well, thank you. And but part of the point is that it's not about not wanting to get older, but we don't have to look older.
Yeah,
And there's a lot going on scientifically that is just it seems like science fiction,
it
but
does.
some things that are very, very
Yeah.
exciting. But the point is about skin longevity is that the older we live, our skin, which is the largest organ of our body, the largest organ,
It is.
has got to survive. And when you think about living older, you would want your heart to be able to survive. You'd want your liver to be
Yeah,
able to survive. You'd want your kidneys to be able to function. Otherwise, you would
definitely.
not be able to have that longevity. It was the same thing with the skin. People die of skin diseases.
Yeah,
And and when you look at somebody and you say, "Oh, that person looks really tired," or that person looks like they have a fever, or that person looks like they're ill, you're not taking an X-ray, you're looking at their skin.
yeah,
So, taking care of your skin is not just about the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, but the healthier, the younger your skin is, the more you have invested in skin longevity. So, that's really important.
yeah,
Okay. So,
definitely.
now to get to your question about, kind of the process of aging, I'm going to really oversimplify this. And we'll take it a little deeper as we go along. But at kind of the simplest level, you look in the mirror and you look at the outside of your skin, you're looking at the stratum corneum. Now that's a dead layer.
Yeah,
It lays like shingles on a roof. They're microscopic. And we shed about 500 million cells a day. We're just not even aware of it. But they're supposed to be very organized. And when they're
yeah,
really organized, they have a tendency to reflect more light and the skin looks a lot smoother. And in between those cells, we have moisturizing or what we call hygroscopic substances. So it's
yeah,
mucopolysaccharides, ceramides, phospholipids, hyaluronic acid that gives the skin volume. It
yeah,
gives the skin barrier function. And it's moisturization. It's kind of your natural moisturization. So the skin looks just nice and plump and smooth and it doesn't look dry. Now, what happens is as we age, that layer gets thicker.
yeah.
So, how many times have you heard people say, well, if I use glycolic and retinoids, I'll thin my skin?
All the
And my answer
time.
is, I hope so, because out here, you want it to be very thin, like a baby's skin.
Yeah.
And think about this. Nobody has 8-year-olds that come home from school on a cold day and say, oh my God, I need a moisturizer.
Oh, I know.
Because the barrier function and all of those substances in the skin are so protective, and that skin is very thin and it looks so
Yeah,
beautiful. So you want it to be thin and compact because it's going to be more protective, it's going to function better. And so when it thickens, those cells pile up and they actually harden and they cornify. It's called increased corneocyte cohesion is the medical term. And so the skin can look duller, it looks thicker,
yeah,
it looks drier. And even when you put a moisturizer on, it simply wets down the dead layer. So
yeah,
it feels a little better for a while. But you've done nothing to actually address that. And it's so a lot of people think that they actually have dry skin. And also you can have a kind of this weird situation where you have a dry skin and oily skin because it can trap oil that comes out of the follicle in those dead
yes.
layers. So this sort of this weird dichotomy.
Mhm.
Um, now, we also know that the more increased corneocyte cohesion you have, in a sense, it kind of sends signals, and those people will have a tendency to have actually more lines and wrinkles.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, that,
then your
mhm.
dermis, though, underneath that, your dermis is 80% collagen.
That's,
And what we want is we want a really thick dermis, thin
yes.
stratum corneum, thick dermis, because our dermis thins as we get older. So this thickens, the dermis thins.
Okay.
And
Yes.
so, and kind of this is how the dermis thins. So when you reach around 18 to 20 and you're fully cooked, you go into what's called a catabolic state.
Yep.
You start losing it about 1 to 2% a year. Now, if you've been a smoker, if you've been a sunbather, and even casual sun exposure, incidental sun
Oh yeah.
exposure can speed this process up. But if your diet, your lifestyle isn't what it should be, you're going to lose it faster.
Yeah.
So when you hit between the ages of around 37 and 39, that's perimenopause. Now it's going to speed up. So between perimenopause and menopause, which is around 49 to 51 on the average, kind of speeds up. Right after menopause, guess what? You lose 30%. And then after that, it's 5% a year. It's women tend at this point to age a lot faster than men from a physical standpoint, from an appearance
Yeah.
standpoint. Men eventually catch up, but it's because we lose so much collagen. And you can lose, by the time you're in your 60s and 70s and beyond, you've lost as much as 85% of your collagen. It's like putting your face into a big wrinkled sack. So we want to keep that collagen very robust and really
Yes.
nice and thick. Okay.
Okay.
So that's kind of that's a simplistic way, kind of the aging process, and in terms of what we look at and what we want to address.
Yes. This is stressing me out because this year I'm turning 40. So when you said 39, I was like, oh
Well,
no.
see, and
Oh,
this is the nice thing, like you have really nice volume with your face,
thank
and
you.
and also there's something called the youthful triangle. Okay,
Yes.
so if you put a triangle over somebody's face, highest, widest part, and then it goes into a well-defined jawline. So as we age, the cheek pad moves down. And also the face kind of swings forward like a pendulum. You start to see a nasolabial fold, but when it swings forward, it hits the pre-jowl area and it kind of stops and then it sort of starts to fold over. But eventually, this part of the face will be wider than this part of the face. So you're
Yes.
very fortunate in that you still have that really nice a youthful triangle.
Well, thank you. Okay, so what do you think individuals can do to reverse the appearance of aging? Because that's the question that's on everyone's
Of
mind.
course. Okay, so first of all, obviously cosmetic surgery is an individual decision, and
Yeah,
whether somebody does or doesn't, that's up to that individual. But cosmetic surgery doesn't give you good skin. It's not going to improve your genetics or how your skin ages. And for the most part, most of the things that people put on their skin, most of the things that they put on their skin, and beef tallow is something that's trending
no,
really big right now. Oh my gosh.
stresses me
It
out
does
too.
nothing to actually get to the reason we age. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about the things that we need to do. And I always say you can do whatever you want, but there's no negotiation, no exceptions. So, number one, it's the skincare management system. Okay. That's a
Yes.
starting point for everyone. And I don't care if I'm talking with a world famous physician, if I'm talking with A-list celebrities, I don't care how sophisticated they are, it's skincare management. Now, how can we all be on the skincare management system and have different concerns?
Yeah.
Well, this system, whether you feel like you have fine lines and wrinkles, large pores, acne, rosacea, discoloration, any of those things, it is transformational. That's all I can say. It's absolutely transformational.
It is.
And one of the reasons why, I'll talk about one of the products for a moment. So it's the system is a cleanser, it's a sunscreen, it's three products in between. They're numbered. So one of the
Yeah.
product number three is BioClear. Now BioClear is glycolic, salicylic, and azelaic acid. Azelaic acid is sold by prescription for acne. It's sold by prescription for rosacea. It's also one of the best topical agents that we've seen for the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. And it's a pigment lifting agent. It actually decreases the production of melanin, the
Yeah.
pigment in your skin that gives your skin color or gives it discoloration. So you can see right there that
Yeah.
it really has the ability to focus on a lot of different skin concerns. And then we have glycolic acid. Now, we could spend hours talking about glycolic acid, but simply glycolic acid dissolves and dislodges the glue-like substance or cellular cement between cells. Now, what that does is, on the outside, it causes those cells to completely reorganize. Remember, we want them to lay like shingles on a roof.
Yes.
And it resurfaces the skin, but it's not inflammatory. It's not abrasive. So it changes your skin. It's not just about, ripping it off with a scrub.
Yeah.
And it also stimulates the substances between the cells.
Yes. Do love
So
a
it,
glycolic.
it, it stimulates them a lot. In fact, from a chemical standpoint, it's actually categorized as a moisturizer because it stimulates those moisturizing substances. Now, glycolic acid has this tiny little molecular weight. When you put things on your face and when you cleanse your face, you think you're getting it into your follicle, you're
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
because the molecules are too large. But glycolic is different. It's such a small molecule that they actually use it in certain prescription drugs as a delivery agent.
Oh,
So it goes into the
wow.
follicle and it dissolves and dislodges the glue-like substance or cellular cement between cells. So when cells also line your follicle, but for the acne process,
Yeah.
they stick together. So it interrupts the acne process.
Amazing.
And then it also thickens the dermis by about 33%, which is extraordinary. Now we can
That's
thicken even more, and we'll get into
amazing.
thickening it even more. So that is transformational. And Amanda, I know you heard this before. I hear it all the time. People will say to me, "Well, gee, it's only been a day or two. Is it my imagination? My skin looks so much smoother. My follicles look so much smaller." This is
Yeah.
a very rapid process,
It really
and
is.
it is. It really is. And and so the second part of the equation, when we're talking about skin rejuvenation, second part of the equation is retinol plus or retinol plus MD. Now, I'm going to kind of take the aging process to another level.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit more technical, but this is really the root of why we age. This is the cause of why we age, both externally and internally. So your genes are made up of DNA. Now, some of your genes are expressive genes, and what they do is they express out an information sheet. So everything that you've ever done and everything that you are is in your DNA. So we're responsible for about 80% of how we age, but there's 20% that's genetics.
Yeah.
So, if you inherited a disease or if you inherited a tendency to something or whatever, it's all programmed into your DNA, and everything you've ever done, everything you've ever touched. I just touched my desk. Now it's programmed into my DNA. So it's all in there, and it expresses out an information sheet, which is all the instructions your body uses in order to walk, talk, repair,
Yeah.
do anything to be alive.
It's so
So
wild that we even know this.
so these instructions are so critical, and
Yeah.
those instructions, when they actually when the DNA produces those instructions, it's like an alien language. The cells can't
Yeah.
even read it. So what they need is they need a messenger. And there's four kinds of RNA, and one of them is a messenger RNA. And what that does is that takes the instructions to the cells and it kind of translates them. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, those instructions, when you're born, those instructions are perfect because you haven't been exposed to anything and you're in an anabolic state, meaning you're constantly growing, you're constantly developing, you're changing every moment. And you're also in a point where, from Mother Nature's perspective, Mother Nature just wants to get you to where you can reproduce. It wants to
Yeah.
make sure that, in a sense, you bypass a lot of the things that happen to adults. You don't see as much childhood cancer. You don't see heart disease. You don't see a lot of the opportunistic things that you might see in an adult.
Yeah.
So just trying to get you through it all, grow, develop, make you fully cooked. Now,
Yeah.
even though you are thriving, you're still programming everything into your DNA, all the sun exposure you've had, but even though you may have had a pool in your backyard for the last 12 years, nobody comes into you and says, "Amanda, look at me. I have a pool in my backyard and I've got lines and wrinkles and brown spots." No, because their skin is perfect, but it's all being programmed in there. So
Yeah.
now you reach the age of 20, 18 to 20, and you go into what's called a catabolic state. So in a catabolic state is, again, you're kind of fully cooked. And so now it's a very slow decline. And
No.
it's something that's it's not that noticeable, but it's kind of like when you open up your laptop one day and suddenly the software is corrupt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a switch turns, and your body is now reading these corrupted instructions or these instructions that have been compromised. Now it's
Yeah.
still repairing, but it's just not repairing to quite to the same extent. And another definition of aging is the loss of identity in memory in every cell in the body.
Oh,
So when your
wow.
cells lose their identity over time because they're unable to completely repair it's kind of snowballs, then eventually you just stop repairing. So that's one of the definitions of aging. Another definition is the loss of immune function and capacity in every organ in the body, including the skin. So what happens is we start to see all these things that have been programmed in there now are now starting to show up. That's why they say that most of the damage you see out here happened before the age of 10. It takes 10,
Yeah.
20, 30 years to show up. But it's slow at first.
Yeah.
So So this is really, think about this. Just because you put beef tallow on your face, just because you put on some cream on your face that some German scientist said is great for wound healing, it doesn't mean it's going to have any effect on that core issue.
Yeah.
Now there's things that can help the communication of the instructions
Yeah.
and certain peptides and growth factors and things that can really help that. But here's what that second part is, the Retinol Plus MD, and this is a medical
Mhm.
fact. It's over 60 years of medical research.
That's
The right
what we
retinoid,
love.
and the right retinoid is not the drugstore or the department store. So it's what we're talking about. It actually corrects instructions coming from your DNA. Nothing else in the world does it the way this does it, because you actually have receptor sites, alpha, beta, gamma, for retinoids. And
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
and what this does is the retinoid changes gene expression, and that's another way of saying that it corrects instructions coming from your DNA. So, Amanda, if you had a twin sister with identical DNA, and you both use the same skincare program, but you use a retinoid, 10 to 20 years down the road, you're going to look 10 or 20 years younger or more than your sister.
Yes,
And, and another thing about retinoids, they're a gold standard for acne, a gold
they
standard for
are.
discoloration, a gold standard for rosacea, a gold standard for the appearance of aging. Not only that, but the right retinoid thickens the dermis by
Yes.
at least 50%. And there's recent studies that show a year of continuous use, it can be as much as 90%.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's extraordinary.
So every
I
single
mean, just,
person needs one.
I, I mean, it should be the law. And you use retinoids on teenagers for acne, which is great because it's
Yeah,
also going to have an effect on them looking younger and their skin, uh, functioning better.
yeah,
We use
yeah.
retinoid sometimes even on babies for infant acne. I'm just going to look real quick to see if we have any questions because I want to get questions, guys.
So I
Okay,
have two on here if you want that they sent in to
sure.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, hold on. Oh, oh wait, hold on. Sorry. Okay, here we go. I have two phones because I needed to. Okay, so Michelle asks, does consuming collagen actually help reduce fine lines and wrinkles? What other ways can we reduce lines other than SPF and consistent skincare morning and
Okay.
night?
So again, what we just talked about, the retinoid is critical.
Yes,
Okay. And then certain products or certain technologies can actually enhance that. But a lot of what people use may feel nice on the outside of the skin, but it's not going to really address that. Okay, now about the collagen. This is another one that's a big fad right now.
I
So
know.
first of all, when you consume collagen, whether it is or protein, because it's a type of protein, whether it's in a steak, whether it is in whatever food you eat, or whether you take a collagen drink, your body does not know the difference. I'm just going to tell you, it doesn't. Oh, gee, she just ate a protein shake. We're going to take that right to the skin.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we spend a huge amount of money on a collagen product when you could sit down and I'm not suggesting that you have to eat steak, although I love steak,
Me
but you
too.
could, have fish, or you could have some type of protein. And we need more protein as we get older. And it's not just going to go directly to your skin per se,
Yeah.
because your body's going to use it for whatever it needs to use it, but it's going to benefit your skin. In fact, one of the things that has a great amount of collagen in the terms of cartilage is chicken skin.
Oh.
It's really great for our skin. And how many times we've pulled the chicken skin off? Well, I love chicken skin, but anyway, so
I mean, it tastes
drinking
good.
these collagen drinks really, in my opinion, if I have somebody who has a diet with a lot of protein and a lot of vegetables, and we cut down on the carbs, which turn into sugar, glucose in the body, and we cut down on simple sugars, which turn into glucose and attach to every cell in your body, attach to your collagen, break your collagen down. We cut down on all of that. You can see a difference in the skin very quickly. In fact, in 2 weeks, you can see a lessening by 25% of bad collagen if you take the sugar out. Because what happens is these
That's
sugar
amazing.
molecules, whether it's coming from pasta, which can turn into more sugar,
Yeah.
or bread, which can turn into more sugar than sugar, they attach to every cell, including the collagen, and it causes it to harden and fibrose and break down much faster. So it's very inflammatory. It's very detrimental in terms of the aging process, as well as it's the number one causative factor in heart disease in women. And this is a 40-year study.
Yeah.
It is also a major contributing factor to Alzheimer's, to a number of cancers, and a lot of inflammatory issues in the body. So, you want to eat a good diet. Now, with that said, there is a supplement that I've recommended for a number of years, which is a collagen supplement. And I'm going to take a moment to explain this. And it's inexpensive. A
Okay.
lot of these collagen drinks you can pay over $100 a
Oh,
month
yeah.
for. Okay.
Yeah.
This is something that's more like, $30 a month or whatever. And it's called BioCell, BIOCELL.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the BioCell capsules. Now, BioCell is a type of cartilage that's attached to a peptide so that it actually can be absorbed. And they originally studied it medically for individuals that had joint issues, elderly people, arthritis, joint issues, to see if it could cushion joints and kind of alleviate some of the issues associated with that. And interestingly enough, it did help a lot. But anecdotally, patients were saying things like, is it my imagination? My skin feels more moisturized. Gee, my brown spots are kind of going away. My skin looks younger. And
That's
so they began to study
amazing.
it for that. And I've actually worked with this for years and years. And by the way, I wish they'd give me some, because they don't. I don't have any financial interest, nor do they give me any product. But in the study, it was 2,000 milligrams, so 1,000 caps.
Okay.
Now, what they've done in terms of marketing it is some of the marketers actually say 1,000, but I tell people you want to take what they took in the clinical
Yeah.
study.
Yeah.
And uh, again, it's relatively inexpensive, and I really, really believe that this can have a nice effect on the skin. Now, it's not going to, supersede anything else that
Yeah.
you're doing, but I think it's a cost-effective way if you're into getting the collagen. I take it myself.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, so anyway, that's kind of my take on collagen.
Yeah.
What's the best
Yeah.
mask to use after using the peel pads? Okay, so after
Mhm.
the peel pads, we don't necessarily recommend that you use a mask. Now you can, but keep in mind you've just really done a pretty, I want to say, not aggressive, that might not be the right word, but you have really resurfaced your skin beyond what you do with the system.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to be cognizant of your skin, what it can withstand, the weather, because it's more
Yes.
forgiving in warmer weather than colder weather. But one of the things that I really like to use after that, if you've got a little extra time, is the Hyla 3D mask.
Yes.
Because what that's doing is that's putting hyaluronic acid, and our molecule is a game changer because it's not a superficial molecule, it goes down deep. And in terms of volumization and moisturization and those kinds of things, it's really a treat.
It is.
You said you saw another question as well. And so BioCell, again, the brand that I talk about is BioCell. And I used to buy it under, let me mention one other thing about BioCell. Sometimes what manufacturers do, they may get all their BioCell, since it's under patent, from the same place, but they want to differentiate themselves. So they say, okay, well, I'll add this into it or I'll add that into it. No, just get it with just BioCell. I used to get it
Okay.
from a company called, I think it was called Arthomax or something,
Okay.
because they marketed it for people with arthritis. And now it's in a
Oh,
lot, it comes from a lot of different distributors, a lot of different manufacturers. Um, and so at any rate, it's not that hard to find. Somebody says I'm a wonderful teacher. Thank you. That's so kind. Uh, any other, oh, what's the difference between retinoid and retinol? Okay. So when we say retinoid, retinoids are a family of all kinds of vitamin A. So virtually anything that's a vitamin A would fall into the retinoid
yeah.
category. Now, retinoids, some retinoids work one way, some work another way. Some are less bioavailable, more bioavailable. Some attach to certain receptor sites, some don't. And so just because you're using a retinoid doesn't mean that you're getting the effects that we've talked about. Now, I think what you might mean is, what is the difference between, let's say, retinol and retinoic acid, which is the prescription form of, so oftentimes they refer to it as Retin-A, although that's a brand name,
Yeah.
but it's retinoic acid or tretinoin. Okay, so let me explain. Dr. Kligman is the person who invented retinoic acid, the prescription version of retinoids. He was with the University of Pennsylvania. And he also did it in conjunction with a Dr. Fulton, who's an expert on acne. And so when he invented that, he licensed it out to Ortho, and that was the first Retin-A product, and it was the actual Retin-A brand. Now, when Dr. Kligman was doing all this research and everything, he actually felt that retinol, the non-prescription version, was more bioavailable. It goes into the receptor sites more thoroughly, and he felt that it actually worked better. So why did he go with retinoic acid? Why not retinol? How did retinol end up, being the non-prescription version? Because if you ask 10 people what the difference is, they always say, oh, well, retinol is weaker. So
Yeah.
let me kind of explain. Retinol, when you have receptor sites in your skin, and when everybody has it, and when you put retinol on your skin,
Okay.
it converts immediately into retinoic acid. That's the active, that's the prescription active, same thing. Now, when you have a conversion, you lose something. So, for example, if sometimes when the skin converts something, that it has to have twice as much, or it's not going to be equal to, or it has to have 5 times as much, or it's not going to be equal to. Well, in this case, it's 10 to 1. You've got to have 10 times more retinol. Well, back then, when Dr. Kligman was doing his studies, 10 times more retinol made retinol actually much more difficult to acclimate to. Now, how many people out
Oh,
there have used a prescription retinoid? And how many times, Amanda, do you ask somebody using a prescription retinoid, well, how often do you use it? Well,
hey.
once or twice a week. Why
Yep.
is that? Because my skin gets red, I peel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can acclimate to it. I can acclimate anyone,
Yeah.
but the retinol, if you equaled it out, is going to be, according to Kligman, it's much more difficult to work with. And I used to joke that you could take paint off your walls. That's how strong it was. It wasn't that it was necessarily stronger. It was equal to, but it was much more difficult to acclimate to.
Yeah.
Now, here's our claim to fame. We have been able to take that 10 times difference. So we equal or go beyond the prescription, and there's virtually no acclimation.
There's
None,
virtually none.
none.
Yes, can attest
So
to
for
that.
example, our 1%, our 1% retinol, which is 10 times greater than the 1/10 of 1%, which is your highest strength by prescription. Plus, we have anti-inflammatories, we have peptides, we have other things in there.
Yeah,
And then we have the 0.05, which that would, so the one I just mentioned would be the retinol MD,
yeah,
and then there's retinol plus.
yes.
0.05, that's equal to the middle strength of a prescription retinoid, which is the most prescribed in the world.
Oh, wow.
That's
Yeah.
the one that you
Yeah.
can go to Mexico and get over the counter. So anyway, and and there's actually a study on this. So the product was studied. It's a dermatology study.
Yes.
The dermatologists in the study, 78% of patients had absolutely no acclimation. About 22% had very slight acclimation, meaning that maybe
Okay.
there was a little bit of redness or a little bit of flaking. Nothing
Yeah.
like with the prescription. And all you would do is say, okay, well then fine, use it every other night for a week
Yeah,
so that you adjust to
for
it.
sure.
So um, we actually had a derm in the study who said, I will never again prescribe a prescription retinoid unless a patient begs for it, unless the patient begs for it because this works so much better. So you have
Yeah.
this tremendous tool at your disposal that actually has other things in it also that really take it beyond a prescription retinoid. But that's
Yeah.
the difference. And because of the fact that when you're using a really strong retinol, because you literally have this, most people would never be able to acclimate to it. You see
No.
very, very tiny amounts in the department store, in the drugstore, or let's say Neutrogena or something like that. And it's not to say that it isn't a good product,
Yeah.
but it's very, very small amounts. So you're not going to get the same effect.
No.
So hopefully that answers that question. Um,
I think so.
Okay, I work for one of the top clinics at Massage Envy as an esthetician. How can I purchase the chemical peel for yourself? The chemical peel and I don't know which pill you're talking about because we make a number of different peels. So there's a
Yeah.
glycolic peel, there's the transform peel, which is the strongest, which is in under physician supervision.
Yeah.
There's refine and there's clarify. But those are only available in a professional setting. So we don't sell them to the individual to do at home. Okay, why can't Massage Envy offer the actual Jan Marini peel but offer the zero downtime peel? So this is all things that come from the corporate office, and there's about 1,200 Massage Envy locations. So we can certainly make recommendations, and but the your corporate office determines what you can carry and what you can't carry. And there are more offerings though that are being made all the time. So you should talk to your Jan Marini account development manager and see what's available because we are bringing in more, I know, more peel products. Um, okay, anything else that we missed,
I have another
Amanda?
question on
Yeah,
here that
sure.
someone had submitted too. Sorry. Okay, so another client, Kelly, wrote in and asked, what solutions exist for tech neck? I'm not a fan of the deep grooves on my neck.
Okay, so sometimes those are called tech neck isn't, and I love that term, but also some people
Yeah.
refer to them as like, it looks like rings around a tree. And by the way, everybody, before I answer that question, I just want to really, really recommend that you give Amanda a call. Reach out to her, Zoom, whatever,
Thank
because
you.
she's really experienced and it very quickly can assess what it is that you want to accomplish. So anyway, okay,
Yeah.
so-called technique. So let me explain. This is what the platysma muscle. So this is a big muscle that goes all the way up into here. So when somebody gets a facelift, it's not like they're taking their face and then cutting it off at the top. What they're doing with a traditional facelift is they're lifting the patellar muscle all the way up, and it takes the lower face with it so that it recontours everything. And and to the eyes, the forehead, mid face, those are things that would be added on. That's not a traditional so-called facelift. Now, what happens as you age is the patellar muscle pulls down. And underneath here, you have a submental fat pad, and you've got other fat, and you have collagen, and you have a membrane, and it holds everything in place. As that pulls down, as you have a lessening of collagen, that you start to see what we call, sometimes referred to as a double chin or refer to it as sagging. And also you've got cords that start to appear. So if you or I do this, we can make the cords
It's not
come out.
good for me.
But but
But yeah,
if
it's like
but
very
at,
strong.
yeah, at some point those cords start to show, even though you're not doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's what they do is they make a little incision under the chin, and they take those cords and bring them together, and kind of like it's almost like a corset stitching, and so they can make them disappear. Now, along with that, you have glands and you have other things as that neck sags down, in which it creates these lines. Again, we can say they're rings around a tree, or you can call it tech neck. That is something that we can decrease with Juvenec, and
Yeah.
also putting things like luminant facial lotion. Luminant facial lotion has a retinoid in it, but it has a lot of technology. This has been written up
Yeah.
in the Journal of Drugs and Dermatology, a lot of technology for discoloration on the face, on the neck, chest, because you get a combination down here of brown and red. Now, it doesn't deal with
Yeah.
the vascular. The red is vascular, but it can really help to even out. If I was wearing something low, you could see my chest, and I don't have any brown spots. I have nothing. Okay. And I was a
I have some
sunbather.
brown
Let me tell you,
spots.
I was an avid sunbather.
Me
So
too.
so putting that on there, that makes a huge difference. With Juvenec actually has ingredients that cause fat mobilization, so it can help with a little bit with the contour. It doesn't replace cosmetic surgery. Just let me tell you, the neck is
Yeah.
an area that at some point, that's really the only option that's open to
Yeah.
you. There's devices and things that they use in that area, but you have to be very discerning, because what happens is that some of these devices, it looks better because they're melting fat. You don't want to get rid of the fat. You want to reposition it.
Okay.
Otherwise, it looks skeletal.
Yeah.
So we could spend a lot of time on this area. But Juvenet can help with the necklace lines. If you go to Amanda's website, our website, you look at the before and after pictures, and you can see that that's one of the things that's really decreased. And you can also see something in the contour, and there's a lot of technology in there that kind of helps with that, but it doesn't replace cosmetic surgery. Now, a lot of people are really happy and they say, wow, I feel like I've had some procedure done.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to consider, what your next step is going to be.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that we see in terms of question? How do we convince our boyfriend husbands to commit to a skincare routine? Haha. Okay. Now,
Men.
that's a great question. So first of all, we make a men's kit. Okay.
Yes.
And it's one of the products in there, which is a combination cleanser and shave gel, which I absolutely love for anybody who shaves anywhere on their body. But anyway, and my husband was somebody who was addicted to Edge shave gel. And I would buy him expensive products thinking, okay, this is going to make his skin feel so much better. The Art of Shaving, those kinds of things,
Yeah.
those stores that specialize in that. He did not like it.
Oh
I could never
no.
get him to stop using it, but he loves this product, and it makes his skin look really expensive. Now, there's a psychological component to this. We females, we grow up with looking at other females and our mothers and things like that, that cleanse their skin twice a day, took their makeup off at night, things like that. Men, when they look at themselves and they think, why would I ever wash my skin at night. I'm not wearing makeup.
Yep.
Now, there are males that are really into skincare, but for the most part, it's not in their DNA.
No.
So we have to take that into consideration. And the other thing that we want to take into consideration is that if we can get somebody to do it consistently every single morning, that's a big step forward.
Yes.
Now, I'm gonna back up a little bit because this is what you want to ask. This is a question I would ask everyone, and I ask it this way exactly. I don't paraphrase it. If there was something you could change or improve about your skin, what would it be? So if you have that conversation with your husband, and he might say, well, you know, I have some brown spots or I have dark circles. And then you say, what else would you like to change or improve? You're happy with your pore size and anything at all. And then it's not about product, it's about solutions. I
Yeah.
don't want to
Yes.
talk. I never want to talk to anybody and start off talking about product because that's just look it looks like I'm just selling product.
Yeah.
It's about solutions. I always say I
Exactly.
don't need another product. I want a solution.
We
And
love
so when you come at it from the
solutions.
standpoint that this is going to be a solution, oftentimes they're more likely to adopt it. Now, I'll tell you what I do with my husband. So you'd think, okay, I own a skincare company, but that doesn't mean that I can change his DNA. So every morning he's very consistent about sunscreen and
That's good.
consistent about cleaning his skin, and he's consistent, BioClear, things like that, okay? But at night he's less consistent. So I say to him, look, even if you're not going to wash your face, and you're in brushing your teeth, take a glob of the retinol and just rub it on your face, even if it's not clean. It still makes a huge difference. And
Yeah.
my husband really doesn't have, and he's 4.5 years older than I am. So I told you I was 73. He doesn't really have any lines and wrinkles.
Oh, wow.
So, you just have to kind of figure out a way. Okay,
Yeah.
can you use multiple accelerators together? Absolutely. Now, you don't start them all at once. So let's say that somebody's number one concern maybe is acne. And
Yes.
acne is an epidemic among women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. So I always tell people too, I say, look, if you stretch your skin and you go like this, do you feel bumps? That's a mild form of acne.
Yeah.
Clogged pores is a mild form of acne.
Yeah.
Blackheads is a mild form of acne, but it's an epidemic for women to have that acne that's nodular or mini cysts
Yeah.
along the jawline. Okay, so there's no cure for acne. Accutane is not a cure. I can give you the statistics on that, but we can manage it. I'm a two-time Accutane failure. You don't see my pores. I never break
Nope.
out. But if I didn't do what I do every single night, I would break out. So
Yeah.
if your main concern, for example, is acne, then you're going to start somebody on the system. If the acne is not, if it's fairly moderate, or maybe it is more around the period or whatever, they're probably going to see a huge difference just on the system. But what we're going to do
Yeah.
is we give them a couple of weeks to acclimate, and then we're going to add in duality.
I
And
love
duality
duality.
has the retinoid. And it has the benzoyl peroxide that doesn't dry. I'm telling you, this is a miracle product. I can de-age the skin
It
and
is.
address and control the acne at the same time. I can manage it to complete
Yeah.
total clearing. And so then, but let's say they also have some brown discoloration. Well, then a couple of weeks later, we have them start using Luminant.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they even have rosacea.
Yes.
So we have them start using Rosalie.
Yeah.
It's just that you don't start all at once. And it's a
Yeah.
journey. So when I talk about somebody's concerns and they give me 3 or 4 different concerns, that's the runway. And we're
Yeah.
going to address every one of them. And it's going to get better and better and better. I guarantee
Yeah.
you. And you can get to the point where foundation is optional.
Yep.
Can we use hydroquinone and retinol together? You can. But what I'm going to tell you is that for many years, I had physicians say to me, Jan, if you could come up with something that works better than hydroquinone, we would go after it in a second because there are side effects. And also, in many parts of
Yeah.
the world, you can't use hydroquinone. It's been banned
Oh,
because of onychronosis, which is blue-black pigment that occurs over using it for extended periods of time.
Because you're supposed to
And
cycle off of it, right? When you have a
well, you're supposed to
prescription.
use it for about 3 months, and
Yeah.
oftentimes the dichotomy is that sometimes you don't see an improvement for 3 months. Then
Yeah.
you're supposed to stop using it. And I have a lot of doctors that treat, let's say, Asian skin or skin of color, and they say it makes it very gray looking sometimes. I have
Oh, that's
a
terrible.
doctor in Southern California who's a big time celebrity doctor, and she just doesn't like hydroquinone for her patients. So enter Luminate facial lotion.
Yes.
Now, Luminate facial lotion has the retinoid in it and it has all the technology for discoloration. This product has been written up, the study on it, in the Journal of Drugs and Dermatology, which is a peer-reviewed medical journal. It can take months, it can take years, or never to get into a peer-reviewed medical journal because it has to be very significant, and they typically don't do skincare. Now, this was
Yeah.
a half-phase study in comparison with prescription hydroquinone. We outdo prescription hydroquinone.
That's
You can use it
so
indefinitely. You don't have the
incredible.
side effects. And it's got the retinoid in it, and it has a lot of other technology. Now, I'm not going to hit on all the technology, but one of the technologies in there is such a phenomenal game changer. Everybody has a melanocyte stimulating hormone in their skin. Now, what this does is we pretty much have the same amount. So, like you have really fair skin. I kind of had, my skin isn't as fair as yours. But if you had really dark skin, we all have pretty much the same amount. But you
Yeah.
have more if you're on birth control pills or if you're pregnant. Now, it plays a
Okay.
role genetically in how we react to the sun. So, there are people that go outside for 5 minutes, they start to pigment. People who sit in a hot car, they start to pigment. Some people don't have the same propensity. So what this does is it down-regulates the melanocyte stimulating hormone. That hasn't been done before. And there's a lot of
That's
other
so
technology in there,
incredible.
including the retinoid, which is a gold standard for discoloration. So that's kind of how I would answer that. I bought Cleanzyme and Skinzyme, but I ran out of Skinzyme. Can I use Cleanzyme on its own? You can, but it's not meant to be used that way. Skinzyme digests dead and diseased tissue, as does the mask. So it prepares the skin. So you get a much better result when you use them together. They're designed to be used together. So keep that in mind. Should I start your neck cream at age 39? You can start the neck cream anytime you want. Um, uh, there are people, again, I don't mean to stutter, but again, it depends on your genetics. It depends on sun exposure, all of these things that play a role in how you might age. I've seen people who are 20 years old where their submental fat pad is really sagged, and they
Yeah.
could benefit from some type of surgical procedure if they choose. There are other people who I have an acquaintance who is, I think she's 55 now. She still has an amazing neck. And I will tell you, most people past the age of 45 do not have an amazing neck. So keep in mind, all of this has been programmed into your skin.
Yeah.
So there's not an age where you can say, well, yeah, I should start at this age. If
Yeah.
you said to me, I'm 25, I'm 20, you could use it at any age. Now, with that said, people under the age of 25, generally, if I ask them if there's something you could change or improve about your skin, what would it be? 99.9% of the time, I break out.
Yeah.
So we're going to put them on a benzoyl peroxide wash cleanser. We make a separate benzoyl peroxide. They could be on duality, but they don't need to be. We're going to put them on a sunscreen. We're going to do things to protect their skin. They could be on a retinoid as well, but there's no sense in complicating a program that they may not be able to afford. We're addressing that concern, getting their acne, managing their acne, and we can also, as time goes on, add these things in. So it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be complicated or expensive. Can we get rid of melasma with topical? You can manage it.
Yeah.
Can't change your genetics. So
Mhm.
even men get melasma. So we're going to run out of time here, but
Oh
I
yeah.
want to
Sorry.
answer this question because I think it's a great question. Okay,
Okay.
we love to put names on things like melasma, chlasma, solar litiginase, freckles, whatever. Basically, when you have uneven pigmentation, you've gotten to the point where your body produces more pigment than you can eliminate. Okay, it's simple as that. Now, this is a very complex subject, so I just oversimplified it. But
Yeah.
what happens is the reason that you have pigment in the first place, any pigment, your skin color, is because you have active tyrosinase in your epidermis. Now, active tyrosinase gives you your normal pigment. If you didn't have active tyrosinase, you'd be an albino. But active tyrosinase is very tied in with UV light. So when you go outside with UV light, what happens is it stimulates active tyrosinase.
Yeah.
Now, if you stay outside for a long time, what happens is that you're going to produce more pigment and you're going to get a tan. And
Yes.
that's the body's way of saying, I need more protection. But it also is showing you that there's a lot of damage. As you get older, it doesn't tan evenly. And also, just the fact that all this becomes very uneven and you've got, again, all this damage programmed into your skin. Now, what we have to do is, in order to address pigment, you've got to downregulate active tyrosinase so it's not constantly stimulating pigment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other things. We talked about the melanocyte stimulating hormone. We talked about all of that. But in order to really address pigment, there's three types. Doesn't matter what you want to call it. They all fall under three types. One is epidermal. So if I had two spots of pigment on my face and they look the same, under a Woods lamp, the epidermal would show up. The second type is dermal. The dermal would not show up. And the third is mixed. It's combination. One of the reasons why lasers are important is because if you have dermal pigment, it's able to go after that differently than just using a topical. Now, I
Yeah.
can still many times get really even skin tone. It looks like it's been eliminated. Melasma can either be epidermal or dermal, and most pigment is epidermal. But if I gave you a cream and said, here, remove your tattoo, you'd laugh at me because it's dermal pigment.
Yeah.
So, and you have to manage it. There's no cure for pigmentation. So you got to manage it every day. Even if you do a laser, you have to manage it every single day at home. So it's the system and it's
Yeah.
luminant. Okay. Okay.
Definitely.
Can we use retinol at the back of the hands? Oh my gosh, yes. But we make a hand product. Now, if you want to put retinol on the back
Yeah.
of your hands, you always have a little bit of product left over. Everything I put on my face, I end up putting on my hands.
That's what I
But
do too.
we make a hand product specifically for discoloration and to help the hands look more volumized and less crepey. Because I don't care, even if you wear gloves and I carry sunscreen with me in my purse because I'm
All the
after I
time.
wash my hands. But even if you do that, at some point you lose a certain amount of volume in the hands, so they start to look bonier.
Yeah.
And also, it's just, again, all this, your hands have been exposed from the time you were born. And so all of that is programmed in there, but you can manage it. I don't have brown spots and I don't have any filler in my hands at the moment. I've done filler in the past. Okay. So I've done filler, but it's been, I don't know, several years since I've done any filler.
Okay.
And I,
Aging in
I
reverse.
so but I put everything on the back of my hands and sunscreen is really, really critical. Um, okay. Is it okay to combine retinol with benzoyl peroxide? Yes, that's what duality is. It's benzoyl peroxide and it's retinol. Now, if you put them in the same container and let them sit there, in a product on a shelf, they'll render each other less effective. So that's why duality is a double chamber product. We're the first company to ever do this. So chamber number one is the benzoyl peroxide. The next one is the retinol. That's why you have two dispensers at the top. You dispense one, the other, and then mix it together in your hand.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why we can de-age the appearance of skin and manage the acne at the same time. It's a phenomenal product.
I mean,
What's
it
better,
saved my face.
tinted or clear sunscreen for melasma? Okay, so first of all, you've got to put on sunscreen very deliberately. I do not recommend a tinted sunscreen as your primary sunscreen because are you going to put it on your neck? Are you going to put it on your chest? Are you going to put it over your ears, your mouth? No, because you don't want to get it on your clothes. So
Yeah.
our SPF 33 antioxidant daily face protection should be your primary, that's your baseline sunscreen. That's what you use all the time. Now we make a tinted sunscreen. Use that over the top if you want, because it's like it gives this beautiful stained glass look. Nobody knows you're wearing anything, but it perfects the skin. It gives it a polished appearance. I'm not wearing any foundation,
Yeah.
any tinted sunscreen. But if I have a day where my wake up and my looks like my skin went out and partied all night, if I want to look, a little bit more polished, then I use that. And it's just
Yeah.
it's just incredible, but not as my primary product. What the question should be is, should you use a sunscreen that has like zinc oxide or um, something like that in it as opposed to a chemical sunscreen? I am recommending a so-called chemical sunscreen with oxybenzone, which is the trade name is Parcel 1789, because studies have shown that it actually protects your skin more against what's called or in the area of what's called immune function protection. So we know about sunburns and things like that, but what happens when you're exposed to UV light, there's a cascading effect. And it sets all kinds of things in motion, inflammatory things in motion, that's aging, discoloration, all these things that happen at a much deeper level. And the studies have shown that you have far greater protection in terms of immune function protection. So I'm a
Oh,
big fan of that. And there's a lot of other reasons to use the SPF 33 because it has an oil capture system that is extraordinary. If you
that's
have
awesome.
combination oily skin, it picks up an unlimited amount of oil. It doesn't pick up water or actives. If you have dry skin, it makes it soft and silky and glowing.
It
So
does.
people love that. Uh, I'm assuming you mean like BioClear, made my forehead ice skating smooth. Well, thank you. Can we talk more about how Jan Marini Skin Research care is different according to studies and the research behind it? Well, that's probably a whole hour in and of itself. But what I can say is I've been a product researcher for well over 40 years,
Yeah.
and our products have, we'd have to talk about in general that products are not regulated by the FDA. They don't require studies. They don't require any of this stuff. This is something that's very different, and it's really about addressing concerns. You should never put anything on your skin. If somebody says, "Oh, this is great for acne," fine, show me a study. Don't put it on your
Yeah.
skin. Don't put something on your skin because, oh, it's going to make you feel better. Um,
Yeah.
is it really going to help your rosacea? Is it really going to help your discoloration? Our primary marketplace is physicians. We're also international. Now, I'm going to give you a great example. Japan is literally the hardest market in the world to get into because their um, standards are so high in terms of manufacturing. And things that we allow in the US, things that they allow in Great Britain, in Europe, a lot of things they don't allow in Japan. And
Yeah.
also, even if you can get your products in, and we do have our products in Japan, and they're doing unbelievably well. In order to get them embraced or adopted by physicians, you have to have key opinion elite leaders endorse your product. And these key opinion leaders, this is not something you go out and pay them. It's just something they
Yeah.
believe in because the Japanese want to look at these leaders and feel confident in what they're using. I'll give you an example. One of the key opinion leaders was speaking at a conference in Japan recently. We actually had four key opinion leaders who were speaking about our products, but
Oh,
this
that's
one key
amazing.
opinion leader was talking about rosacea. And what he said was that our Rosalieve works better than any drug. So
Amazing.
you can have,
Congratulations, because
we have,
that's
thank you,
you
thank
you
you.
guys really put in the work with just literally everything. Like you really do, and it makes a difference and the product everything stands out. So,
Well,
that's a huge
you
accomplishment.
want to have studies, you want to have white papers, you want to have things that have been published. We've had five products studies that have been published in the Journal of Drugs and Dermatology, which is more than any other
Yeah.
company I can think of. Um, but the proof proof is, does it actually work? Does it have that response? And
Yeah.
let's just see if we have, uh, uh, somebody says they like the SPF 33 as a primer. It's fabulous as a
It's
primer.
so good.
Um, Good to know this stuff. Love telling our clients. See anything? Can you see any other questions, Amanda, that we should answer?
Okay, so
No.
someone's asking about DMAE.
Yeah.
Just like explain a little more about it. And then you got a lot of compliments. Everyone loves you.
Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you very much. Guys, I wouldn't be here without you. Okay, this will be the last one we can answer because I don't want to keep you any longer and we don't want to get cut off. If we get cut off, thank you very much. But
Oh,
anyway, okay,
yeah.
DMA. DMA stands for dimethylaminoethanol. It is in our siesta. Now, our vitamin C is very unique and there's lots and lots of studies, but if I took the vitamin C out, it would be an extraordinary product.
Yeah.
DMAE causes muscle shortening at the neuromuscular junction. Now, this was studied in Alzheimer's disease. So let me explain that one of your major neurotransmitters is acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine plays every nerve in your body takes acetylcholine and kind of injects it into the muscle, and it causes the muscle to contract. That's what we call uh, anyway, normal muscle positioning, okay, causes to contract. So and you can call it muscle tone if you want. And give you an example of muscle tone. If you're 20 years old and you don't exercise, you probably have good muscle tone. If you're 60 years old and you exercise like a fiend, you won't have as good a muscle tone as that 20-year-old. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, your facial nerve also sparks acetylcholine into the muscle. And it's one of the things, this is not the entire reason, but it's one of the reasons why you have contour and your cheek pads are high. Now, what happens as we age, just like you don't have the same muscle tone at 60 as you did at 20, is that probably the receptor sites aren't picking the acetylcholine up the same way.
Okay.
Now, we don't know exactly, but I'm going to speculate that those receptor sites are probably compromised. And so DMAE is actually a precursor to acetylcholine, again, studied in Alzheimer's disease because
Yeah.
acetylcholine can play a role in brain functioning in Alzheimer's and not so much as the beta amyloid plaque, but anyway. And so what they found is that oh, when you apply DMAE to the face, and this is a study that was actually presented at the American Academy of Dermatology, half-face, double-blind, random placebo. So let's say this is the side of the face. So it's applied all the way up to the hairline, forehead, on the jawline, on the neck, and behind the ear. That side of the face would actually, one eyebrow would look higher than the other, nasolabial fold more pulled back, jawline more defined, neck looked better. This difference, you can see it. If you have never used it and you do one side comparison,
Yeah.
you can see the difference, start to see it in the first 2 minutes. And you can
Wow.
see it progressively, kind of maybe over, let's say, 15 or 20
Yeah.
minutes. Now, this is not a film former. So most products that claim to form or lift, they have films in them that kind of tense the skin.
Yeah.
And then when you wash your face, it goes
It's like
away. It doesn't
falls
last.
off. Yeah.
Even the really expensive products have something in there that they have other ingredients as well, but
Yeah.
something like that. So what they found in this study is that this effect is persistent. Now, persistent used medically, that term used medically, means that let's say you used it for 3 months or 6 months and you stopped using it, that the skin would not just suddenly change back, it would age back. There's a permanence to it.
Wow. Amazing.
And it's also one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories we've ever seen. It has a lot of other, it's a delivery agent. The skincare management system, there's a lot of the way I design this is that we can get things to connect with receptor sites and get certain effects that you can't never people haven't been able to get before because of how I layer these products. So
Yeah.
DMAE is a delivery agent. Glycolic is a delivery agent. So anyway, DMAE is really an extraordinary technology. and it's combined with the lipid soluble C. The lipid soluble C is compatible with retinoid, compatible with glycolic acid. It has a more of a neutral pH, so it's not acidic. Again, a whole other story. It's more bioavailable. There are all kinds of studies that show that it's about 30 times more, um, 30 times more potent at 1/4 the amount. And there's studies on formal ester-induced tumors, all kinds of studies. It's about 2,000 studies. So the CS is an amazing product.
It is.
Anyway, I don't think we're going to have time for anything else, but God, I sure loved the questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
We'll just have
you,
to,
everyone.
pick this up where we left off next time.
Yeah, we appreciate all the knowledge that you share with us. And this is just so incredible that you take time to do these because I mean, I'm a science nerd, so I love
Uh,
hearing
Thank you.
everything about everything. I want to know how everything works. I want to know what's going on.
Uh,
So we appreciate it
and
so much.
by the way, are brightening and lightening products the same? I can't help it. I'm addicted to answering questions. Okay. So first of all, you are not allowed by the FDA to say lightening on the label of a product. You may see companies that do it, but if they get caught, because the FDA doesn't regulate your ingredients, they regulate claims. Lightning is considered a drug claim. So they would say to you, oh, well, then fine. If you want to make that claim, you've got to go through pay $50 million to go through all the testing and everything. And now it's a lightning product. So companies use the term brightening or the appearance of. Now, what determines whether or not it works are the ingredients. And I can tell you 99.9% of the time, these products have very little effect. So anyway, I'm going to stop because
Yeah.
I'll keep going. Double cleansing is not important. That's a question
Especially if
for
you have a
another.
cleanser that is
Yeah,
a deep follicular cleanse,
yeah,
then you don't need to double cleanse.
yeah. That's a whole other discussion in and of itself. But thank you so much. This has been so
Thank
much
you,
fun.
Jan. We appreciate you.
Well, it's just
Well,
such a pleasure. I really, really, really enjoyed this. And until next time,
yes, until next time, take care.
reach
Thank
out to
you.
Amanda. Reach out to Amanda. Bye.
Yes, guys. Bye.